Welcome to the class. Let's chant the Mangalacharana prayers. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Mandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangsha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurtushe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Manchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining on time. We are studying Bhagavad-gita as it is. We are in Unit 2 and today we'll begin the chapter number 12. One of the shortest chapters of Bhagavad-gita, only 20 verses. And the title of this chapter is Bhakti Yoga. That's where Krishna stopped in the previous chapter, 11.54 and 55. He mentioned that only by Bhakti Yoga can one know him in his two-armed form and can approach him in that manner. So in this chapter, there is a description of Bhakti Yoga, a bit more in detail compared to previous chapters. Let's chant also the Mangalacharana for Bhagavad-gita. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Fullarvindayata Patra Netre Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajavadito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Tottavetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamrita Duhe Namaha. So let's do a quick look back. Was the universal form seen only by Arjuna? Yes or no?
No.
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 Thank you. No. Yes. Is worshipping universal form better than demigod worship?
No.
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 Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Yes.
Universal
Yes.
form, one of the form of Vishnu himself.
Correct. So worshipping universal form is better than the worship. It's better. Okay. Is the universal form an avatar or a vibhuti? An incarnation or an opulence?
Vibhuti. Opulence.
Vibhuti.
Vibhuti.
Okay. Very good. It's a vibhuti. Right. Thank you. Good. All right. So in chapter 11, we came to know from Krishna that Bhakti Yoga is supremost, devotional service unto his personal form as Shama Sundara. Attachments to Krishna's personal form is the highest realization. Nevertheless, there are people who prefer to meditate on the impersonal Brahman. So in this chapter, Arjuna inquires about the position of those who are impersonalists and also those who are personalists. So this chapter begins like that Arjuna inquires about these two kinds of personalities, impersonalists and personalists. Okay, so this chapter has 3 sections, 12.1 to 7, 12.8 to 12, and 12.13 to 20. So 12.1 to 7 is bhakti over impersonalism. That's the subject described here. Let's look at the shlokas first. Arjuna uvacha evam satata yuktaye bhaktastam paryupasate echapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Shri Bhagavan uvacha mayyaveshya mano ye mam nityayukta upasate shraddhaya paryopetash te me yukta tamamataha ye tu aksharam anirdeshyam avyaktam paryupasate sarvatrakam achintyam cha kutastham achalam dhruvam sanniyam yendriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha. Kleshodikatarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhiravapyate. Etu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha ananyaneva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate tesham aham samudharta mrityu sangsara sagarat bhavami na chirat partha maya veshita chetasam. So these are very beautiful shlokas from chapter 12, and they give us a lot of information about bhakti. So Arjuna here begins with a question. His question is, who is better? So let's look at the shloka. Arjuna is saying, Evam satata yuktaye bhaktas tvam paryupasate. So he's telling about one category of worshippers of Krishna who are devotees, and they're always connected to Krishna. Satata means always, yukta means connected through bhakti. And then he talks about another one, which is mentioned in the 3rd line, Yecha api aksharam avyaktam. But there is another category who worship you as akshara. You have heard people saying alak niranjan or brahma jyoti, the light. So aksharam, the supreme power, avyaktam, who is invisible, or what is invisible. Tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Arjuna wants to know of these two people who is a better yogi, or who is more connected to you, who is superior. So that's what his question here is, now how interesting it is to me that there are so many people who follow the path of Advaitavad, and they consider their path to be superior. They also study Bhagavad-gita, but I don't know why these shlokas, which are so clear about the supremacy of bhakti, which will come in, few verses will come to see them. These people, they don't read these shlokas, or they don't understand them, or what happens to their intelligence when these words enter into the mind. Don't they make sense out of it? That in Gita, very clearly Krishna in his words is emphasizing again and again that personal worship is much more superior to impersonal worship. So here Arjuna's question is like that. He's checking out for us. He wants to know from Krishna. He's seeking clarification. So the translation is, Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect? Those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested? That's what he wants to know. So let's read the purport. Okay, let me ask someone who doesn't generally read to read.
May I, Prabhu?
Okay, Shanaki Mataji, go ahead.
Yeah. So Krishna has now explained about the personal, the impersonal, and the universal, and has described all kinds of devotees and yogis. Generally, the transcendentalists can be divided into two classes. One is the impersonalist and the other is the personalist. The personalist devotee engages himself with all energy in the service of the Supreme Lord. The impersonalist also engages himself not directly in the service of Krishna, but in meditation on the impersonal Brahman, or the unmanifested. We find in this chapter that of the different processes for realization of the absolute truth, Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, is the highest. If one at all desires to have the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he must take to devotional service. Those who worship the Supreme Lord directly for devotional service are called personalists. Those who engage themselves in meditation on the impersonal Brahman are called impersonalists. Arjuna is here questioning which position is better. There are different ways to realize the absolute truth, but Krishna indicates in this chapter, in this chapter, I think I have not finished, Prabhu. In this chapter, that Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service to him, is the highest of all. It's the most direct, and it is the easiest means for association with the Godhead. In the second chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, the Supreme Lord explained that a living entity is not the material body. He is a spiritual spark, and the absolute truth is a spiritual whole. In the seventh chapter, he spoke of the living entity as being part and parcel of the supreme whole, and recommended that he transfer his attention fully to the whole. Then, again in the 8th chapter, it was said that anyone who thinks of Krishna at the time of quitting his body is at once transferred to the spiritual sky, to the abode of Krishna. And at the end of the 6th chapter, the Lord clearly said that of all the yogis, one who always thinks of Krishna within himself is considered the most perfect. So, in every chapter, the conclusion has been that one should be attached to the personal form of Krishna, for this is the highest spiritual realization. Nevertheless, there are those who are not attached to the personal form of Krishna. They are so firmly detached that even in the preparation of commentaries to the Bhagavad-gita, they want to distract other people from Krishna and transfer all devotion to the impersonal Brahma Jyotir. They prefer to meditate on the impersonal form of the absolute truth, which is beyond the reach of the senses and is not manifest. And so, factually, there are two classes of transcendentalists. Now, Arjuna is trying to settle this question of which process is easier and which of the classes is most perfect. In other words, he's clarifying his own position because he's attached to the personal form of Krishna. He's not attached to the impersonal Brahman. He wants to know whether his position is secure. The impersonal manifestation, either in the material world or in the spiritual world of the Supreme Lord, is a problem for meditation. Actually, one cannot perfectly conceive of the impersonal feature of the absolute truth. Therefore, Arjuna wants to say, what is the use of such a waste of time? Arjuna experienced in the 11th chapter that To be attached to the personal form of Krishna is best because he could thus understand all other forms at the same time, and there was no disturbance to his love for Krishna. This important question asked of Krishna by Arjuna will clarify the distinction between the impersonal and the personal conceptions of the absolute truth. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So Bhagavad-gita leaves no room for people to sit on their philosophical chair and speculate what is right and what is wrong. In Gita, Arjuna has answered practically all questions that are needed to be answered regarding the absolute truth. So here he's making a very clear inquiry from Krishna. Which one is better? Right? So there are two paths. Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushana explains. So this is path number 1. What is that path? From path to whole. No? So this is what we studied in chapters 2 to 6. Okay. So this path means, first of all, you understand that you are Atma, spirit soul. After that, once you have understood your Atma, then you put efforts to realize that you are Atma. Understanding is just a theoretical understanding. Then next is realization path. And once you have realized that you are Atma, then you meditate on the source of that Atma called Paramatma. Okay. So here the approach is, first you understand the path, and then you begin to understand the whole by understanding the path, from path to whole. And this was explained to us in the chapters 2 to 6. Slowly rising in the yoga ladder. Slowly, gradually rising in the yoga ladder. Now, this path is very difficult. Why it is very difficult? So many people talk about self-realization, 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 but they don't know that that self is so small, so tiny, that to meditate on that self and realize that self is a very, very arduous task. It's not easy. It's very difficult. Right? So this path is one of the paths, but then not the easy one. And then the second path is this, path 2, which is from whole to part. And this is explained in Bhagavad-gita from chapters 7 to 11, which we covered in this unit. So in this path, you first understand the self Atma as the dependent or the servant of the Lord. That understanding should be very clear. Who am I? I am a servant of the Supreme Lord, or I am a servant of the Supreme Lord. Why? Because I'm very tiny and I depend on him. So once one has understood that, then the next thing is now meditate on the source, the Supreme Lord, by the process of bhakti, which means you are a servant or you are a dependent. So then you act in that way. You serve the Supreme Lord. That's bhakti. Bhakti means service. So you serve the Supreme Lord. Now this path is easier. Why it's easier? Because in this path, one gets to engage one's body, one's mind, and one's senses. Right? Now, Arjuna's question is what? Of these two paths, which one will take me to the goal? The fastest. Which will give me the quickest results. Okay? So Krishna's answer is going to be path number, which one? 1 or 2? 2. Yes, Krishna's answer is 2. So Prabhupada talks about two types of impersonal. Prabhupada talks about two types of transcendentalists. One of them is personalist, one of them is impersonalist. And the impersonalist is also of two types. Who are they? One is those who worship the universal form, what we learned in chapter number 11. And the other are those who meditate on the impersonal Brahman. The worshipping of universal form is gross because the form becomes visible to one's eyes, and worshipping the impersonal Brahman is more subtle because you don't really see that. So technically they are known as pantheism and monism. We already described these terms before. Okay. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says this, that impersonalists, they think of the absolute truth in two ways. On one hand, they worship the Lord in his Vishwarupa. On the other hand, they worship the Lord in his indescribable form, unmanifested form, right? So But both of these are rejected by whom? By the pure devotees of Krishna. They reject both of these. They take to the path number 2. So let's look at the next shloka, which is the answer by Lord Shri Krishna. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Veshamanoyamam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Pariyopeta Steme Yukta Tamamataha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered to be most perfect. They are considered to be the most perfect. All right. So Krishna is clearly saying here that those who are personalists, they are most perfect. Prabhupada gives a very beautiful explanation here, which is quite instructive for devotees of Krishna. Yes, Arati Mataji, you can read.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. A pure devotee is constantly engaged. Sometimes he chants, sometimes he hears or reads books about Krishna, or sometimes he cooks prasadam, or goes to the marketplace to purchase something for Krishna, or sometimes he washes the temple or the dishes. Whatever he does not let a single moment pass without devoting his activities to Krishna. Such actions is in full samadhi.
Such action is in full samadhi, right? So that person is fully engaged, everything in connection to Krishna. Not a single moment is wasted by such a person, not a single moment. So that's the way of connecting with the Supreme Lord. Now, Arjuna has a question here that, okay, if you say the personalists are best, superior, then what will be the goal that the impersonalists will achieve? What will be their destination? Where will they go? What will happen to them? So then Krishna explains in the next few verses, right? So the next 2 verses talk about, verse number 3 and 4 talk about object and process of impersonal realization. What is the object of realization? Atma. Process of realization is given in verse number 4. So 3 gives you the object of realization, 4 gives you the process of realization. Verse number 3. Ye tu aksharam anirdeshyam avaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kutastham achalam dhruvam. I have marked with in different colors the different characteristics of the object of realization, the spirit soul, Atma. So what are they? First, it is Aksharam. Second, it is Anirdeshyam. Third, it is Avyaktam. Fourth, it is Sarvatragam. Fifth, it is Achintyam. Sixth, it is Kutastham. Seventh, it is Achalam. Eighth, it is Dhruvam. So why is it important to know these characteristics? Because if you don't know the characteristics, how will you meditate on it? I need to know something about something to be able to finally realize that something. So here that information is given, that this is what you're supposed to meditate upon. Meditate upon what? Aksharam. Aksharam means that which is not destructible, cannot be destroyed. Arnideshyam. It is something which cannot be described in words. Anirdeshyam. Why it cannot be described in words? Because our problem is that our language is only sufficient enough to describe the body and things related to the body. It cannot describe anything beyond the body. Why? Because anything beyond the body is not within our experience so far. So our languages are limited. And that's why even the Vedas cannot sufficiently describe, even the words of humans and demigods cannot sufficiently describe the soul. So it is called anirdeshyam. It cannot be described by ordinary words in ordinary language. Then avyaktam, it is not visible to our senses. Sarvatragam, it is present everywhere in the body, in the senses, in the life airs, which means it's difficult to be located. Achintyam, it cannot be understood by logic. Kutastham, achalam, dhruvam. So these characteristics are mentioned, and then it is said the process of realization. Sanniyam indriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhayaha te prapnuvanti mameva sarva bhuta hite rataha. So what is first process? Sanniyam indriya gramam, controlling all the senses, withdrawing them from sense objects. Second, sarvatra samabuddhayaha, seeing one's friend, enemy, and neutral person equally. Okay, means seeing Brahman everywhere and in everyone. Third, sarva bhute hite rataha, acting in a way that you want to cause good or benefit to everyone, not just few people, to everyone. You want to act in that way. Like telling the story of Thakura Maharaj. I hope you heard his name. So Thakura Maharaj, once he was told by his wife, whole day you're sitting and chanting names of Vitthal. Go and earn some money. You don't have anything to eat at home. So Thakura Maharaj, he went to one local zamindar who had a lot of farmlands, agricultural lands. And he said, can you give me some job? So that person said, you just oversee my agricultural field, that no humans come and, cause any mischief, no crows come and spoil the crops, no wild animal enters here, no cows come and graze here. You just sit there and see this. So Tukaram said, okay, I'll do that. So once he completed his job, he was given a lot of sugar cane as his remuneration or salary. So he took that bundle of sugar cane on his shoulders and started carrying it home. While he was walking home, so many children approached him. Can we have this sugar cane? We want to take it. We want to eat it. And Tukaram Maharaj said, okay, have it. I have so many. What will I do of so many? So on the way, he distributed all the sugar cane, And when he reached home, he had nothing to give to his own children and his wife. The wife asked, did you get a job? He said, yes. What did you do? He explained. What did you get in back? Sugar cane. What did you do? I distributed. So that person is like that. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. That person doesn't see this is my family member. This is not mine. This is my friend. This is my enemy. That is a path of impersonal realization. It's not an easy path, basically, to say. It's not an easy path. So those who are on the path of Advaita Vad, or those who call themselves Advaitins, it's very important for them to understand, if they really call themselves Advaitins, they should follow these two things. They should control their senses, and second, they should be equal to all in their dealings. But they cannot be practically. So then it's like cheating yourself. You are not following the process which you are supposed to follow to get spiritual realization, right? Let's look at the translation of these two shlokas, 3 and 4. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me, right? So they're engaged in the welfare of all and they at last achieve Krishna. That's mentioned here. Okay. But then their path is difficult, very difficult. So here, let me ask you this question. Krishna said that these people at last, they achieve me. Who? The impersonalists. They at last achieve me. So what does me here refer to? What the meaning?
Effulgence of Lord's body.
Brahma Jyoti.
Okay.
Brahma
Yes.
Jyoti.
Shamata says Brahma Jyoti. Yes. Harinit Mataji says Brahma Jyoti. Surekha Mataji says Brahma Jyoti. Who else says what? Paramatma.
So, Prabhuji, they reach the spiritual sky, but they don't reach Krishna's planets. They don't live with him. They don't see his personal form. They only reach the spiritual sky.
That spiritual sky is same as
Whatever he says is
Brahma.
Golok Vrindavana.
they
At last he says.
at last. So what it means?
It means after finishing this process, there is another process of bhakti. Then they will achieve me.
Okay. Interesting. Hasan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Your Grace. At last, whatever it may be, he is going to achieve to reach Krishna.
At last. Means anyone will at last go to Krishna. That's what you want to say. At last they achieve me.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this me can have three meanings. One meaning of me is they achieve the universe, they achieve the Brahma Jyoti aspect of Krishna. That is also of Krishna. That's why it's referred to as me. The Brahman effulgence, the formless aspect, devoid of activities, devoid of characteristics. Then when he says at last achieves me, can also mean Krishna's majestic form, in case that person meditates on the Paramatma also. So majestic form means the form of opulence. And finally, at last, me can also mean Krishna himself in Golok Vrindavan. But in that case, as Ashok Prabhuji mentioned, that person, after successfully completing his impersonal realization, need to get association of some pure devotees of Krishna. Then they will also at last attain to Krishna's planet. So it depends on what they do after that. If they remain stuck, then they are in spiritual sky, stuck. But if they take association of devotees of Krishna, then they can move ahead and also be with Krishna, right? At last achieve Krishna. However, the process to reach the spiritual sky for them is quite difficult. So that's explained in the next verse. What is that? Next verse. Kleshodikatarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham 𝗹𝗲𝗿𝗵. Kleshodikatarastesham. This path is full of kleshaha, miseries. Adhikataras means too much. Avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham 𝗹𝗲𝗿𝗵. The path of impersonalism is very, very actually dangerous, because once someone gets a hang of it, that the ideas, the concepts, the logic, the philosophy, it's very difficult to come out of it. Very difficult. Even if someone has apparently become a Vaishnava externally, but those nonsense of impersonalism thoughts, they still remain in the mind. They still remain inside. They don't go away easily. So that's why for most of the people in the world who have been to some kind of spirituality before coming to a Vaishnava path, they have to be very careful, because most of the forms of spirituality that are prominent in India and outside India, they are full of impersonal ideas. Like yesterday only, I was checking out on YouTube some videos. I came across this one short video of some motivational speaker. So he was talking about the greatness of Hinduism. So he said Hinduism is so great because we see Bhagwan in everyone, in everything, everywhere. That's the greatness of Hinduism. We don't see God in one. We see God everywhere. So for us, mountain is also God. For us, dog is also God. For us, cat is also God. For us, everything is God and everyone is God. So these kind of things which are applauded by general mass, is actually not very high philosophy. It's only an impersonal idea, right? So this is very much inside people's mind, and to come out of it is difficult, right? So bhakti, it means we come out of these misunderstandings, and then our progress on bhakti is also quite swift, and we make true progress on bhakti. So let's look at the translation. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that line is always difficult for those who are embodied soul. Why difficult? Because embodied soul means one who has the body, and for that person to imagine something which is formless is very difficult, very, very difficult, So that's why you see most of the impersonalists, they will also worship deities of Krishna or deities of different demigods. Most of the impersonalists, they will also sing bhajans, kirtans. They will also speak stories of different avatars of Krishna. Why? Because they are tired of just meditating on nothing. But if you ask them, then why are you taking help of all these different aspects of bhakti? So they'll say, we are taking help of bhakti to finally give a bhakti. We're just using it as a ladder. We're just using it as a ladder. Once we go to our destination, then we don't have to do all these things. So it's just a means to reach the end. Okay. So we have here. Yes, it's a nice purpose. Okay, long purpose. We'll read paragraph by paragraph. And today I want to give opportunity to those who hardly read. Let's see who wants to read. Okay, Rohit Prabhu, go ahead. But you hardly join into the class also.
Yeah, Prabhuji.
Okay.
The group of transcendentalists who follow the path of the inconceivable, unmanifested. Where it is gone?
Sorry. Yeah, can you see now?
Just highlight the text.
Yeah,
Yeah, got it. The group of transcendentalists who follow the path of the inconceivable, unmanifested, impersonal future of the Supreme Lord are called Jnana Yogis, and persons who are in full Krishna consciousness engaged in devotional service to the Lord are called Bhakti Yogis. Now, here the difference between Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga is definitely expressed. The process of Jnana Yoga, although ultimately bringing one to the same goal, is very troublesome, whereas the path of Bhakti Yoga, the process of being in direct service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is easier and is natural for the embodied soul. The individual soul is embodied since time immemorial. It is very difficult for him to simply theoretically understand that he is not the body. Therefore, the Bhakti Yogi accepts the deity of Krishna as worshipable because there is some bodily conception fixed in the mind, which can thus be applied. Of course, worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his form within the temple is not idol worship. There is evidence in the Vedic literature that worship may be Saguna or Nirguna of the Supreme possessing or not possessing attributes. Worship of the deity in the temple is Saguna worship, for the Lord is represented by material qualities. But the form of the Lord, though represented by material qualities such as stone, wood, or oil paint, is not actually material. That is the absolute nature of the Supreme Lord. A crude example may be given here.
Thank you.
Hare
Krishna. Okay, a crude example can be given here. Yes, Vrindarani Mataji.
Hare Krishna. A crude example may be given here. We may find some mailboxes on the street, and if we post our letters in those boxes, they will naturally go to their destination without difficulty. But any old box or any imitation which we may find somewhere, but which is not authorized by the post office, will not do the work. Similarly, God has an authorized representation in the deity form, which is called Archa Vigraha. This Archa Vigraha is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. God will accept service through that form. The Lord is omnipotent, all-powerful, therefore, by his incarnation as Archa Vigraha, he can accept the service of the devotee, just to make it convenient for the man in conditioned life.
Yes.
So,
thank you. Thank you. So Prabhupada mentions here about the deity form of Krishna. You see, the deity form of Krishna is worshipped by us, not through some speculation that we have in our mind. Krishna himself in 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam spoke to Uddhava, his cousin brother and his friend, the process of deity worship. He has given very clear instructions on how the deity should be carved, what all materials can be used to make the deity, how the deity should be worshipped, So it's not something which is speculated. The Supreme Bhagavan himself is teaching that science. And Prabhupada here gives the example, very good analogy. He gives the example of post boxes. He says you put a letter in the post box and it goes to the destination. Now, it's not our business to carry that letter. There is a system that carries that letter and takes it to the destination. Similarly, when we worship a deity here, our worship is taken or accepted by Krishna through that deity. Krishna accepts it through that deity. However, any post box will not serve as the authorized post box. It has to be, within the system of the postal office. Similarly, we cannot say any stone I start worshipping, any image I start worshipping, and then Krishna will take worship or accept worship through that image or through that stone. No, it's not going to happen. Basically, it has to be an authorized form, and the process should be authorized by an agent of Krishna. Basically, what happens is, when a pure devotee of Krishna requests Krishna that you please accept seva through this deity form, then Krishna begins to accept seva through the deity form, right? And it's the easiest way for people to remain Krishna conscious. So I remember Srila Prabhupada writes many places that especially for those who don't live in the temple, which means most of the people, they must have deity worship program at their home, every day, in order to give the family members a chance to be Krishna conscious in some way or other. They must do deity worship. Now, deity worship doesn't mean we have to do a big elaborate arrangement or worship system we need to keep there. We can just have only pictures of Krishna. We can have, frames. We can have, yes, if possible, we can have deities, but if deity worship is difficult, then pictures are also good. And we should daily offer them articles like incense, lamb, flowers, if possible, sambhoga, water, and in this way also engage our family members in whatever way is possible. Even children can be engaged in that, in the deity worship program. So this is very important. Okay, what is example for Nirguna worship? Example for Nirguna worship means you meditate on impersonal Brahman. Nirguna means without any attributes. Guna means quality. So Nirguna means no qualities. So Brahman is like that. It has no tangible qualities or attributes. So Nirguna worship means you just meditate on that Brahma Jyoti, the light. Saguna means worshipping the deity form. That's called Saguna. Okay. Okay, this is again very interesting paragraph. Let's see. Navanidhi, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. So for a devotee, there is no difficulty in approaching the Supreme immediately and directly. But for those who are following the impersonal way to spiritual realization, the path is difficult. They have to understand the unmanifested representation of the Supreme through such Vedic literatures as the Upanishads, and they have to learn the language, understand the non-perpetual feelings, and realize all these processes. This is not very easy for a common man. A person in Krishna consciousness engage in devotional service simply by the guidance of this bona fide spiritual master, simply by offering regulative obeisances unto the deity, simply by hearing the glories of the Lord, and simply by eating the remnants of foodstuffs offered to the Lord, realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very easily. There is no doubt that the impersonalists are unnecessarily taking a troublesome path with the risk of not realizing the absolute truth at the ultimate end. But the personalist, without any risk, trouble, or difficulty, approaches the Supreme Personality directly. A similar passage appears in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is stated there that if one ultimately has to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this surrendering process is called bhakti, but instead takes the trouble to understand what is Brahman and what is not Brahman, and spends his whole life in that way. The result is simply troublesome. Therefore, it is advised here that one should not take up this troublesome path of self-realization because there is uncertainty in the ultimate result.
That's all.
Shall
Thank
we-
you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna. So now let's do one simple exercise. I'll put you in groups, but we'll give you only a few minutes, couple of minutes. You need to compare the path of personalism and impersonalism and find the differences, all possible differences. Okay, so I'll just open the rooms and we give you, I'm making 7 rooms and we give you 4 minutes. Okay. And kindly join. Four, five. I think we made 7 groups. Yeah, okay, we have 7 hands up. All right, so it will be nice if you give one point, and then after that we again do another round of one point. Fine. So you can say 1 point, then the other group goes to the next point, like that. So personalism. And impersonalism. Okay. Let's start. Anshu Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam from the group 4. So what we found out is that the personalism is a form of offering seva in any one of the 5 relationships. So 5 primary relationships, whereas there we do not have seva, and so it is we cannot have any connection because there is no form, so we don't have any connection and we cannot offer seva.
No seva to personal form.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Neha Mataji. I'll come back to you, Anju Mataji, right? Neha Mataji.
The personalists have a relationship which is master-servant relationship and or servitor relationship, and impersonalists, they consider themselves equal to God. There is no relationship. They consider equal to God. Master-servant relationship.
Okay. Here there is sense of equality, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Merge. All right, good. Usha Mataji.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. It's easy to concentrate on personalism and it's difficult to concentrate.
Thank you. Mahesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Guruji. Actually, Hari Anant, Hari Katha Ananta, there are a lot of things, but if you have told me one point, I would consider that love in personal form, we will get direct love from the Lord. And in impersonal form, we may get Gyan, we may go to Karma at least and try to get the ultimate, but we will never get the ultimate love of it. Here we will get directly attached. There is no chance. I mean, you may not, and you may still be in confusion all the time.
Yes, no such reciprocation.
Exactly.
Why will there be reciprocation? If for me Krishna is just an impersonal thing, then Krishna will also respond to me in similar manner, right? So no reciprocation. Correct. Pankaj Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In the absence of no reciprocation, it makes it dry and boring. But whereas personalism is full of all the rasas and love.
Very good. Enlivening and blissful. And this is very dry. and boring. And that is the reason the impersonalists, they then eventually start reading Srimad Bhagavatam, here reading Krishna stories, all that. Yes, Lokesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Prabhuji. Impersonalism has the high risk of falling down, and impersonalism, it's not risky.
Less chances of fall. Good. Annapurna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In personalism way of worship, there is complete realization is possible. So the person will see God as a person and they can reciprocate. And in impersonal, the person can realize only till Brahman or Paramatma.
Very good. Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In personalism, the personalism can be done in any ashram and any varna. Even Chandalas can perform, but the impersonalism, that is basically meditation, so it has to be in a proper sannyas order.
Yes, so a lot of constraints, lots of constraints, right? One has to observe brahmacharya, compulsory. Okay, good. Neha Mataji.
Prabhuji, one more from our group, most of the answers were given by Dr. Anita Goel Mataji. I'm just repeating one point which she has mentioned is engage in personalism. We engage, or we can engage all our senses.
Okay, engage the senses. Senses can be
engage
engaged.
the senses.
Yes. Okay. Good. Yes. Good point. Can engage the senses. So 9. Engagement for all the senses. Correct. Then
In impersonalism,
sense engagement is
only for the mind.
yes,
Very difficult.
Sense engagement is basically restrained. Yes, thank you. Usha Mataji.
Prabhuji, there is a deity worship in personalism, and there is no deity
When
worship.
impersonalists also do deity worship.
Then the other one, impersonalists become atheists, and the personalists are basically
not become. They may become.
Yeah, they may become. They may become atheists, impersonalists.
Any other difference?
When it involves chanting, the person.
No, they also chant. They may also chant. What else?
Okay, we have spoken about the relationship because impersonalists do not have any relationship with the Lord, and here we have direct relationship.
That is done. We have that point is done. Okay, if no other point, then those points are done. Yes. Next, Mahesh Prabhu.
Guruji, in personal form, once you surrender, Bhagwan takes control of yourself. He only directs. He plans for you. Whereas in impersonal form, it is like Vayurnavam Ivam Pasi. Bhagwan Parose agar hota hai, that kind of stuff happens actually.
For spiritual perfection.
Yes.
Right. So no personal help.
Exactly.
It's based on one's own strength.
Yes.
Thank you. Aarti Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. And impersonalists see everything as God, like say mountain, whatever material objects also they consider that to be God, but personalists don't do that.
So what do they do that? What do they do?
They don't consider that everything is God. It's it is his creation, but it is not God.
So basically they understand similarity and difference. They emphasize only on similarity. And that's why they say everyone is God.
Yes.
Okay, Annapurna
Yes.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Lord Krishna has promised he will personally come for his devotees, and he has not given any promise as such. He will personally come to impersonal this.
Yeah, that same point, no? Personal help is there
And
in no personal help.
Samabhava is compulsory in impersonalism, and Samabhava is not necessary because materially, in personalism, materially there can be differentiation, but spiritually there is no differentiation.
Okay, Samabhava is not necessary on the path of personalism. Not so. Samabhava is there on the path of personalism also, but then it's defined differently. It's defined differently. Okay, so any other extra points?
It's a long and difficult.
I have an extra point, Guruji.
One thing,
Okay,
can I add?
wait, one at a time, please. Okay, Neha Mataji, it's long and difficult. Yes, personalism, easy path. All right, Mahesh Prabhu.
Yes, in personal form, it is ananta, it is endless. You can continue for, endlessly. Whereas in impersonal form, it may be akhanda, but it is not ananta. So, that is the best thing that happens in personal form of worship.
Okay, thank you, Anju Mataji.
Prabhuji, we achieve the final destination, that is Sham Sundar form. We go to Sham Sundar form, achieving our Swarup Siddhi with the personalism. And here we land up in the Brahma Jyoti or the Paramatma feature or something like that, from where we can come down.
Yes, thank you. I close the whiteboard. Pankaj Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, the personalism that we believe, the fact is that Lord Vaikunta planet and then all the effulgence, and this we believe, but their conception is that the highest planet, that which is in material world, is Brahmaloka, Satyaloka, and same in that level, same planet in Satyaloka, Brahmaloka, all the existing planet, Vaikunta planet, whether it's the Sri Ram's planet or Sri Krishna planet, all they exist, and they ultimately they went into the Brahma Jyoti. That is, this theory is suggested to me by one Nirguna sannyasi.
Yes, okay, thank you. There's a difference in their understanding. Hassan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, your grace. In the personalism, always you have the deities recorded in your mind. So even if you are distracted, you can focus on them and to bring you back. But in personalism, you don't have any vision or anything.
Okay, thank you. All right, fine, good summarization of all the points. Now, in this slide, you'll see just some of the points mentioned, not all, the differences. So, personalist and impersonalist. Form, formless, easy, troublesome, engages the senses, restricts the senses. There's chanting of a lot of mantras, the names of God, and here there's chanting of verses from Upanishads, starting with Om. There is mercy factor on personalism path. There is endeavor factor on impersonalism path. Personalism path guarantee is certain, impersonal path uncertain. But what points you said are also correct. These are the gist of all those points taken from the current verse 12.5. Okay. Now I'll give you a break. 6 minutes break, because I have to chant my Gayatri. So, once Srila Prabhupada, when he was in India, he was preaching very extensively. They used to hold many pandal programs, and he became very popular because he had Western disciples. So it was the first time that in India people saw Britishers, Americans, people with white skin, wearing dhoti kurta and saris and chanting God's names. So many people got attracted towards Srila Prabhupada. Even different sadhus would come to visit him. One day, his disciple, Her Grace Malati Mataji, she entered into an argument with one of these sadhus who was an impersonalist, an 𝗹𝗲𝗿𝗹𝗹. And he was very, very adamant. He did not want to accept that God has a form, God is personal. He was like, no, it's impersonal, there's no form, all that. So Malati Mataji tried to convince him, but he was not ready to listen to her. She was giving good sound arguments, but he was not agreeing. So at night, what she did is that when that sadhu slept, it was winter season. So she went to where that sadhu was sleeping, and she removed the blanket and brought the blanket to her place. So that sadhu started feeling cold. So he was running around to see who has stolen his blanket. And he came to know that that lady who was arguing with him, she stole away the blanket. So he came to Malati Mataji and said, why did you take away my blanket? It's winter season now. So Malati Mataji, she removed one thread from that blanket and she gave it to that sadhu. Your philosophy is everything is one. So this thread is as good as the blanket. So you take this thread and make yourself warm using this thread. So now that person was, he was kind of checkmate, because his philosophy is everything is one. So that thread is as good as the blanket. So he could not say anything. So he took that thread and said, okay, I'll go and manage with it. So he went to sleep. He could not sleep. After half an hour, he came back and said, I surrender to you. Your philosophy is correct. Please give me my blanket back. And from tomorrow, I'll become a disciple of your spiritual master. So impersonalist philosophy is not logical at all. Even with common sense, you can defeat that philosophy easily. It's not really sensible philosophy to think like that, not at all practical. So after Krishna spoke that, now he's going to talk in 2 verses, the benefits or the glories of the path of personalism, 12.6 and 7. Okay, so here he mentions, okay, verse 6 and 7, I just highlighted 7 here. So verse 6, Ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha ananyaneva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate teshamaham samuddharta mrityu sansara sagarat bhavami na chirat partha maya veshita chetasa. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pritha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Tesham aham samuddharta mrityu samsara sagarat. I quickly deliver them from the ocean of samsara, birth and death. I help them come out of it. So this is explained here. This is a benefit of this path of bhakti, right? So swiftly delivered, as here it says, mrityu sansara sagarat. The world is compared to an ocean because it is unsurpassable, but by bhakti it becomes easily surpassable. The Lord promises that. So let's look at the second paragraph here. Okay, I'm looking for someone who doesn't read, who doesn't get chance to read. Nagaraj Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. As stated before, the Supreme Lord can be appreciated only by devotional service. Therefore, one should be fully devoted. One should fix his mind fully on Krishna in order to achieve him. One should work only for Krishna. It does not matter in what kind of work one engages, but that work should be done only for Krishna. That is the standard of devotional service. The devotee does not desire any achievement other than pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His life's mission is to please Krishna, and he can sacrifice everything for Krishna's satisfaction, just as Arjuna did in the battle of Kurukshetra. The process is very simple. One can devote himself in his occupation and engage at the same time in chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Such transcendental chanting attracts the devotee to the personality of Godhead.
Thank you. So you read it wrongly. It's not Hare Krishna 3 times. It's 2 times. Then it's Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Then it's Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, next paragraph. Guru Mayam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The Supreme Lord herein promises that without delay he will deliver a pure devotee, thus engaged from the ocean of material existence. Those who are advanced in yoga practice can willfully transfer the soul to whatever planet they like by the yoga process, and others take the opportunity in various ways. But as far as the devotee is concerned, it is clearly stated here that the Lord himself takes him. The devotee does not need to wait to become very experienced in order to transfer himself in the spiritual sky.
Thank you.
In the Varaha, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So you remember from chapter 8, there were 2 paths described for transition to the next destination. What are those 2 paths? Anyone remembers? 2 paths from chapter 8? No?
Path of light.
Yeah,
And
path of light and path of
darkness.
darkness. Very good. Thank you. So which path brings you back to material world?
Path of darkness.
Path of darkness. And which path? The path of light takes you to spiritual sky. And which is taken up by which kind of people?
The devotees, the pure devotees. Path of light, you're asking, no, Prabhuji?
Yeah, Neha Mataji, no, devotees don't take that path.
Naradhamas.
No, come on, how Naradhamas will take the path of light?
No, the path of darkness, Prabhuji, is taken by those who don't believe in God.
No, Anju Mataji.
Prabhuji, the path of light is directed by demigods and taken by the bhaktas, those who are not attained.
Not bhaktas. Okay, the path of light is taken by the yogis. The yogis take that path. The path of darkness is taken by jnanis and karmis. So for a devotee, one doesn't have to take that path. For the yogis, you cannot go directly as a yogi to spiritual abode. You'll have to stop at different transition points. It's like taking a flight which has a lot of transit points, no direct flight. But when it comes to Krishna conscious person, then Krishna says, I swiftly deliver, which means no transit points, direct flight to spiritual sky. Direct flight. So much so that the Lord cannot wait to meet his pure devotees. Like, sometimes, I'm just giving you an example, it becomes easy to understand. That let's say there is a child who is not very obedient to one's parents. And that child then had a fight with the parents. I want to go study in US, though living in India. And the parents said, okay, fine, go take admission, we'll pay the fee. So the child is out there, is studying there, has been long time, did not come back home. Now, after many, many years, without any communication, nothing, suddenly he writes to the father, I wish to come back. So I said, okay, fine, you come back, no worries. So the child comes back. Now, because he or she did not really had good rapport with the parents, didn't listen to them, did whatever he wanted to or she wanted to do. So what the parents will do, they may not personally go to receive him at the airport. They may send the driver, go, you receive him, bring him home, give him food, give him a place, we'll meet him at night, we'll see him at night. Because parents are busy, they have many things to do, and there are many other good children who are good, responsible. So they will not be very, warm in having the child back. But as parents, they will allow, yes, you come back. However, if the child is very, very, close to the parents, is very much liked by the parents, is very obedient. So when such a child is coming home, generally the parents would personally go to the airport to receive the child, right? Isn't it? Personally drive to the airport, bring the child home, then serve hot food, nice preparations to the child, isn't it? But you hardly find a parent who will call up the child and say, no, you don't come. I am coming there. I'll help you pack your luggage. Then we'll come back in the same flight, and then we'll go home together. We'll hardly find a parent do that. Mostly the parent will go to the airport. Not more than that, isn't it? Even after many, many years of meeting. But Krishna is so eager to meet his devotees, he say, I am not going to wait for you at the gate of Vaikuntha. I am going to come where you are to pick you up. And then I'll take you back home to God. Right? So the Krishna is so loving, so loving that he's not saying, you come to Vaikuntha, I'm there for you at the gate. No, he's coming all the way to material world to pick up the devotee and then personally carry the devotee back in his flight to spiritual abode. That is Krishna's eagerness to meet his devotees, take to the path of bhakti. He loves his devotees so much. So that he comes on Garuda, right? And takes the devotee back. Any one example, Krishna did something like that for someone? He came on Garuda.
Gajendra.
Yes, Gajendra, right? And interestingly, it's mentioned by Acharyas, when Garuda was flying, he was so slow. Krishna told, come on, what happened? We'll get late. So then Krishna got down from Garuda and said, instead of I flying on your top, I think I have to carry you. So he put Garuda under his armpits and he flew from there, And when Krishna reached the planet Earth, he thought this may look awkward that Garuda is in my armpits. So then he again removed Garuda from there and said, now you can take your position. I'll climb on top of you. So, so Krishna is so eager. So that's how swift he is to help his devotees go back. That is his kindness. Okay. So, yes, the Lord at once becomes the deliverer. A child is completely cared for his parents, and thus his position is secure. Similarly, a devotee does not need to endeavor to transfer himself by yoga practice to other planets. So from here, we learn one good lesson that now the choice is between people, what they want to do. Either they serve God, who is reality, or they serve illusion. And there's no other choice. Only two choices, either serve the reality or serve the illusion. Those who serve the reality, they get the ultimate benefit of being escorted by Krishna back home to God. Okay. All right. One last table to show the difference between what we discussed in verses 3 to 5 and 6 to 7. Nirguna and Saguna. Brahman realization is Nirguna and Bhagwan realization is Saguna. This is inconceivable, Brahman realization. And Bhagwan realization is also inconceivable, but it has inconceivable potencies. This is all-pervading, that is also all-pervading. This is unchanging and fixed, that is also unchanging and fixed. This is not perceived, no activity. Here there are lots of activities because of 6 opulences. There's risk of not realizing the goal, there is success guaranteed. And this point also we discussed before. Only eternity and knowledge is realized. Satchit, here Satchit and Ananda is realized. Okay. Now, before I go to the next part, which is a quite small in terms of number of verses, but quite detailed in the explanation, I'm thinking, let me take questions for this section if you have any. Then if you don't have any questions from this section, then we go to the next one. Paramita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I have the question that is chanting Om is like the mantra chanting, because you showed the difference between personalist and impersonalist, that the personalist they chant mantra, but the impersonalist they are doing something with Upanishad. So I want to know that what's the difference between mantra chanting and Upanishad chanting or whatever.
We discussed that in chapter 8. Don't you remember? We did discuss about the difference between chanting Om and Hare Krishna. If you don't remember, you can refer to the slides. It's there in the PDF of chapter 8. So chanting Oma is for those who are impersonalists. They generally prefer that. And because they don't have a conception of a fixed destination in the spiritual sky, so they end up in Brahma Jyoti by chanting Om. So, but they don't enter into specific plan because they don't worship any specific personality, you know. So it's just like you enter into a city, but you are not able to enter into anyone's house because you don't know anyone there. So you are out on the street. So similar Brahma Jyoti experience or realization is something like that. No relationship with any eternal aspect of Krishna. Right? So it's like that. Okay. Neha Mataji.
Prabhuji, can you please once again explain why is it called Akshara Brahman?
Akshara means which is destructible. Kshara means which is fallible. Kshara means which is limited. So Akshara means which is indestructible. So why they refer to as Brahman as indestructible? Because they have to refer to it in some way, no? They say it has no form. They say it has no quality. It has nothing. So, okay, then how do you identify it? So one quality is it is eternal. Akshara means it's eternal. Kshara means things which degrade or deteriorate. So it's Akshara. Okay.
So is that the only quality Brahman has? Indestructible Akshara Brahman?
Yes, actually Brahman has qualities when you look at the Sagun aspect of Brahman. But the problem with them is that they don't accept the Sagun aspect. They only accept the Nirgun aspect. So then it is the only quality. It is Akshara. It's eternal. Okay.
Okay.
Usha Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Danvat Pranam. Prabhuji, why do we call Archa Vigra? Vigra is deity only. That's one question. Another question related to this is that if you are staying in a family who they do not believe in deity worship, as we said, once we do Archa Vigra worship or deity worship, then you can involve the other family members. But suppose if they do not get involved, is there any difficulty? But they let you do what you want to do. So I just wanted your guidance on this, Prabhuji.
So thank you. 2 questions. First, why it's called Archa Vigraha? Vigraha means form. When you say Archa, the word Archa comes from the word Archana, means the form which is worshipped. Archa Vigraha, right? So it's the form which is worshipped, worshipable form of the Lord. Because there are so many forms. So we are talking about a special form, right? And then next is in family which doesn't...
Prabhuji, in continuation of this only, as you said, worshipable form. So what are the forms in which we can worship Krishna? As you said, even photographs would do. If you have a deity, Vigra, maybe Laddu Gopal, that is also acceptable, or Radha Krishna, or Radha Damodar. So could you guide us on which are the forms which we can keep in our home temple only?
Any form of Krishna's incarnations. It can be Krishna, it can be Jagannath, it can be Gaunitai. It depends now. First of all, it depends on parampara, which parampara we belong to. So in Gaudiya parampara, we generally worship 3 forms. One is Radha Krishna, then next is Gaunitai, and then there's Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. So that's Gaudiya line, the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Then there can be other paramparas. When it comes to Sri Sampradaya, then they will worship Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman. They'll worship Lakshmi Narayana. They'll worship Balaji, Venkat, Lord Venkateshwara, Anant Padmanabha. So they'll worship Vishnu forms. Okay. Then when it comes to Pushti Margis means Vallabha Sampradaya. So then they worship Laddu Gopal or Srinathji. So that's their form of which they worship prominently. Then when it comes to, let's say, the followers of Tukaram Maharaj, then they will worship Rukmini Vithala or Panduranga, form of Krishna, Rukmini Dwarkadish, form of Krishna. So it depends. It depends on which sampradaya one belongs to. But then all these forms of Krishna are bona fide forms of Krishna. Any Vishnu Tattva deity of Krishna is okay.
You may not belong to any sampradaya, Prabhuji. Like we have just come into Krishna consciousness, maybe say close to 1.5 years or so. So I think we can we pick up any of the forms if you guide us? Suppose I have seen in the temples, you have Gaur Nitai and you have Radha Damodar and
well, that you say Radha Damodar, basically Radha and Radha Krishna, and then Radha Krishna may have different names. It may be Radha Damodar, Radha Shamsundar, Radha Govinda, Radha Kunj Pihari, Gopinath, Ras Pihari. There are many names. So it's basically Radha Krishna worship, right? So whatever you have at your altar, if it's Laddu Gopal, continue with Laddu Gopal. And you can have pictures of Radha Krishna, you can have pictures of Jagannath, Baladev, Gaur Nitai, everything is fine.
Okay. And a second part of the question, Prabhuji.
Second part of the question is, what was that? Okay, if the family doesn't support deity worship, that's okay. They're allowing one to do, then we can continue doing. They may not support directly, but indirectly they are supporting.
They are supporting. They are supporting.
If someone is earning and then that person is giving you money to do some festivals for the deity, so that person is supporting. Right? Okay. Maheshwar.
Guruji, in impersonal form, actually still there is some element, some kind of image, some jyoti. So in actually a macro level, there cannot be any impersonal thing. No, there will be always some kind of identity. So
yeah,
actually,
the thing is that, you see, it's very simple. Like, for example, that what you're saying is true. But what they say is, let's say in mathematics, in geometry, we study shapes, correct? So one shape you call square, another shape you call rectangle, then you call some shape as hexagon, you call some shape as circle. But if any shape is none of these shapes, if any shape is none of these shapes, some abstract diagram, then a person may say this is shapeless. That's wrong. I'm not saying it's correct, right? But then they may say it is shapeless. But actually looking at it, it's wrong. It also has a shape, but you have not given a name to it, right? So in that way, the impersonalists say formless. But basically, when you say anything exists, it must have some kind of form, right? Got it? So that's why it's not difficult to defeat them. You can easily pin them down on their logic, but it's not basically the logic that they agree with. They have their own. Then
like atheism also, they have some idea. So at least there is something. You can't say there is nothing like God. Even if they say God is, still you at least you believe that there is something like God, and then you say no. So already it is there.
Yes, it's there. Correct. Thank you. Srinivas Gopal Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can you hear me? Prabhuji, yeah. I hear that from Agamanas or some other Shastras, the bona fide Archa Vigraha is only 4-hand form. Can you explain, Prabhuji, this one?
No, nothing like that. There's nothing like that. That only 4-handed form is the bona fide form. It's
Archa Vigraha, to be qualified as Archa Vigraha.
No, any form of the Supreme Lord, which is eternal, is Archa Vigraha. It's any Vishnu deity or Vishnu Tattva is Archa Vigraha. Can be worshipped. Okay, so if you study Agamas, then Agamas is just only some section of the Vedas. It's not the complete Vedic section, complete Vedic knowledge. Agamas is only one part of it. So something is mentioned there, but then there are other places, other things mentioned. So if you reconcile all of that, then we come to know what any eternal form of the Lord can be worshipped in the form of a deity. That's 𝗪𝗵, worshipable form, because it's eternal. It's not something which you have imagined. It is not something which you have, formed in your mind. Okay, God may be like this, God may be like that. It's an eternal form of the Lord, and you are worshipping that form. And how do you come to know about that eternal form? From the scriptures, you come to know that there is a form like this, there is a form like that. You worship.
Hare Krishna. So also they say that this recently two-hand form worship is started only recently. It was not before like that.
No, it's not that it started recently. It's been the long time, However, the idea is this, that in Kali Yuga, the philosophy of theism or Vaishnavism, it evolved just for the sake of, let's say, a Leela of Krishna, to make it available to people in that way. So in old times, people only had knowledge of Vishnu prominently, only when some Vaishnava acharyas like Madhvacharya, and then Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas and Nimbarka Swami, Vishnu Swami, they came in the society, they started promoting worship of Krishna with two arms or two-handed form. It doesn't mean that Krishna is not eternal. It's just that in the human society, it became more prominent after these few acharyas came, Just like who knew Lord Chaitanya so much 100 years ago or 50 years ago, but after Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON all over the world, now people know Chaitanya. This doesn't mean that Chaitanya did not exist before, right? It's just that Chaitanya has become more prominent by preaching about Lord Chaitanya. Same thing. Krishna became more prominent in the Vaishnava path after the coming of these few acharyas. Before that, it was only Vishnu worship which was prominent. Okay, Arati Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, you had mentioned that, even though we worship Radha Krishna, it is accepted in the Narayana Lakshmi form. That is how Krishna accepts. Is that, is my understanding correct? I don't know.
Yes, it's for those who are still on the platform of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. They cannot actually worship Radha Krishna. Radha Krishna will not accept their seva in Radha Krishna form. So Radha Krishna will only accept their seva in the form of Lakshmi Narayana.
Okay, so even the reciprocation is the same way, Prabhu.
Yes, because to please Krishna in the mood of Golok Vrindavan, one has to enter into Ragamarg Bhakti, which is explained in Nectar of Devotion. Just being doing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, one cannot enter into Golok Vrindavan.
Okay.
So one has to do Ragamarg Bhakti, which is what we'll learn in the book Nectar of Devotion, right? So at the initial stage of worship of Radha and Krishna, the deity, though it is Radha and Krishna deity, but it reciprocates with its worshippers, just like Lakshmi Narayana. So the worship is full of opulence, awe and reverence, like that. In Radha Krishna worship, that is not there. Like, to give you an example, those pure devotees of Krishna who have intimate relationship with Krishna, when they worship Krishna, they will not blow conch shells. Shankha. Blowing of Shankha is for Lord Vishnu, not for Krishna. So there are many such things. But then that worship is not available to people who are not on that platform yet. So that's why it's okay. But it doesn't mean that they are not going to get benefit. They'll get benefit, but then they are not ready for that kind of worship anyway, Radha Krishna worship.
Okay.
And different forms of the Lord also have different standards for worship. So of all the forms of Krishna, Radha Krishna worship is the most difficult, not in terms of what upchars you do, but in terms of level of consciousness. One has to have a very pure consciousness to serve them. If one's consciousness is not pure, then the worship is not accepted. So that's why if you look at Srila Prabhupada, outside India, in most of the temples, he established Gaur-Nitai deities or Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra deities. He did not establish Radha Krishna deities because he wanted only people with very good Brahminical qualities, very pure standards, nice understanding of scriptures to worship Radha and Krishna.
So within most of the Radha Krishna temple, conch shells are blown, no? In most of our ISKCON temples.
Because again, who are those who are worshipping? They are not yet on the platform of Raga Marg Bhakti. Those who are worshipping, then most of them are still not on the platform of Raga Marg Bhakti. So they are Vaidhi Sadhana Bhaktas. But Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakta will lead to Raga Marg Bhakti later on when it becomes very mature. So it's like a step below Raga Marg Bhakti. So eventually they will go to that stage also. But that will come by time.
So all the ISKCON temples I've seen conch shells are blown. So you mean to say all of them are none of them are in Raga Marg Bhakti?
You see, the number of devotees who are on Raga Marg Bhakti, you can count them on fingers. Raga Marg is not easy. It's not that small thing. Raga Marg is very advanced stage of Krishna consciousness. So we'll study in Nectar of Devotion. There are 9 stages of bhakti, and Raga Marg begins at the 7th stage. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. It starts there. So most people are hanging on stage number 1, 2, or 3. Then few go to stage 4, which takes long period of practice to cross stage 4. Then few will come to stage 5. Then you can imagine 6, 7 is far. So it's not easy. Raga Marg is not easy. Raga Marg is quite rarely achieved. And that all science is explained in Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. We'll study that later. We'll study in that book. Okay, David Prabhu.
Sorry to
Hare
interrupt.
Krishna, Your Grace. My question, from what we are explaining now, for instance, if you, for instance, I have an altar and I have Krishna and Radha. So that means I have to remove this picture from my altar, because if I look at myself, I'm not qualified to to have them on my altar.
You don't have to remove them, but then you don't have to remove them, but you can ask your spiritual master or your guides that, can I continue to worship them? If they say continue to worship, then you continue worship. And if they say no, you can actually focus more on worshipping Gaur-Nitai or Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, then you do that. Right? So we ask our spiritual authorities.
Okay.
And again, we do understand that in Gaudiya Vaishnava Marg, when we worship Radha Krishna, we don't worship them directly. We worship them through the medium of our spiritual master or guru. We worship them through the medium of Gaur-Nitai. So our understanding is that I am not qualified to worship you, but I am assisting my guru in worshiping you. You're getting the point? Right? I am assisting my guru in worshiping you. So it's just like when you are offering incense to the deity, so it should not be in your mind that you are actually directly offering the incense to Radha and Krishna. In the mind, it should be, I'm offering this incense to my guru, and he will then offer it to Radha and Krishna. So I am not qualified, but he is qualified. right? So that's why in ISKCON, when we offer any article to Krishna, when we worship Krishna, first of all, we show that article to our spiritual master, to our guru. We show it to him and we take his permission. It's like, I'm going through you. I'm not going directly, I'm going through you, and then I'm assisting you. So that's the mindset. So then, it's not about our qualification, basically. Then it's on the basis of qualification of the spiritual master, who is pretty much qualified to worship Radha and Krishna. Okay, David Prabhu?
Yes, I'll explain this. Okay, I have two altars. One in my bedroom. I have other side of the room, which I have another altar. And this altar, I show it to Guru Maharaj, and he said it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
And I have another one behind me, and this one has a Radha and Krishna, because I have this idea that sometimes I have some visitors from the temple. If they are in my room, I cannot go there to disturb them. So what I have to do in my room, I do it here. So this particular one, I have not changed to Guru Maharaj. So this one has the Radha and Krishna. So
yeah, you show it to him. You ask him, right? And any picture you worship or any form you worship, so you should worship it daily. You should not skip your worships. Not that, okay, I'm traveling, so let me skip it, or I'm someone is there in the house, I cannot do it. So you have to make arrangement that whatever form you worship, you should do that worship daily. It's a daily thing. It's not once in a while, or you miss it on some occasions. So if you are traveling, you cannot carry the deity with you. So what you do is that you carry a picture of the deity with you, and then you offer your daily worship to that picture. So in that way, you keep that connection on everywhere you go, right? That's the way we do that program. Okay. Thank you. All right. I have someone else also. Surekha Mataji, you wanted to say something? Okay, Hassan Prabhu, you have something else as well.
Yes, I have another question which I wanted to ask you. It's about a class Maharaj gave the other time in Mauritius concerning karma, and he was explaining that sometimes if a devotee is going through some difficulties, it is very, very dangerous. Sometimes we think that is his karma, which we don't have. What can we prove that what is going through is his karma? And he was trying to explain that we don't have to think like that because it's very, very dangerous. But my question is, for instance, a devotee, is it right for him to think that whatever he's going through is his karma? And if it thinks like that, is that offense, or can you explain a little bit of that for me, because I didn't get the chance to.
It's an off topic. But anyway, what probably Maharaj wants to try there is that, as a devotee, one should know, of course, when we talk about devotee, it means one who is properly situated in the practices of devotional life. So that person, because he has taken shelter of Krishna, so whatever is happening in that person's life is not just mere karma of that person, but it is an arrangement of Krishna to help that person become purified. So when you say karma, then karma is a very, very it's a very impersonal system to give us what we deserve based on our past actions, right? However, when we start practicing Krishna consciousness, then Krishna begins to interfere in our life, and he plays with our karma. Basically, he plays with it in a way that it helps us to grow in our Krishna consciousness. So instead of saying that it's my karma, rather than we should see that as a personal arrangement of Krishna to help us, okay? Yeah, so that's very important. Okay, next question. Surekha Mataji, yes, please.
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I was asking that as according to me, according to my life, it is very difficult to go even beyond anartha nivritti. So bhav is a very difficult stage. But as Lord says, Antakale cha mame, somehow or other, if we are able to remember at the last time of our life, can we go to directly to that Lord's abode without going into bhav stage and all?
Yes, you will go to Lord's abode, but not Golok Vrindavan. There are many abodes there in the spiritual sky.
Then it depends on that which form are we meditating on at that time is.
So
or what
how do you know the form that you are meditating on at that time is actually the form of Krishna in Golok Vrindavan?
Yes.
You know, because Krishna in Golok Vrindavan also looks very similar to Krishna in Vaikuntha. So it's not just about the form, it's basically the bhav, the mood of worship. That's more important. The form manifests based on the mood which is there in our consciousness, right? So if we think we can see Krishna in Golok Vrindavan form, then we should know that we actually don't see Krishna in Golok Vrindavan form because we don't still have that bhav yet. We don't have that mood yet. You know, so we have some understanding of how that form looks because we have seen pictures, we have seen paintings, we have seen deities, but we really don't see that form in our consciousness. All right. So if someone is at the stage of anartha nivritti and that person gets to remember Krishna at the end moment of his life, don't worry, that person will take birth again and then continue from anartha nivritti, go to the next stage in next life. Before attaining prema, one cannot enter Golok Vrindavan. That's not possible. Because without attaining prema, if we enter Golok Vrindavan, we'll only become a cause of disturbance to others.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Will not be someone welcome there. Because what will happen is everyone there will be glorifying Krishna and will start complaining, why all the time you talk about Krishna? Why not about me also sometimes? I'm not that bad. Look at me, talk about me, glorify me, praise me, you know, which means our ego is still very, very much alive, false ego. So we'll not be happy in Golok Vrindavan, even if you reach Golok Vrindavan before attaining stage of prema. Will not be happy. Okay. There's a question in the chat box. I have gone Nitai, Jagannath, Baladeva, and Radha Madhav and Krishna deities. I bought a small deity of Dwarkadish, which I give at Malta. Is it okay? Yeah, because you have bought it, will not ask you to send them off. You know, but the best way of doing deity worship is that, you know, you should wait for the deity to come to you and not really go to the market and buy the deity and start worshipping the deity. It's best if you pray to Krishna that Krishna, I want to serve you, worship you, please come. And if Krishna is then ready, he will come to you. How will come to you? Someone will gift you a deity, or someone will tell you you should do deity worship, and or someone will bring the deity to you, like that. Then you should know it is Krishna's desire that Krishna wants to accept my worship. You know. So the other thing is that I want to impose my worship on you. You know. But the right thing is that I want to worship you. Please, you accept my request. So then Krishna will make arrangements. He will come to you. Yes, now I want to get worship from you. You know. So that's how it's done. Okay, Brindarani Mataji.
Hare Krishna. We learned today about many positive aspects of a personal process. And if this process of bhakti is so superior, why then happens that not so many jivas are going into spiritual realm out of many aspiring devotees? Only very few are going revive their spiritual position, because we are learned to judge about value of something according to efficiency.
Yes, thank you. So basically it's not that they cannot go. That's why they are not going. It's because they don't want to go. So when we say accepting personal worship of Krishna, it comes at a price. When it says Raga Marga Bhakti, it comes at a price, right? So then most are not ready to pay that price. It doesn't mean that they will not become ready ever, but then they are not ready, at their present state to pay that price. So it's not that people cannot go back to God, and everyone can go back to God. Everyone is supposed to go, but not all wants to go. All don't want to go. They're okay with whatever little understanding they have about God. They're happy with it.
So I guess in the same time, while we are practicing, we are also developing that desire. Desire becomes bigger.
Yes. You develop that desire by hearing from a devotee who has those desires.
Mm-hmm. Also, I have another part of the question. Very few souls are going back into spiritual realm, but a lot of jivas are coming down in material world. So does not happen that in some moment material world becomes overloaded or something?
It's not like that, you see, because first of all, material world is not a very small place. It's huge. So any number of jivas can be here. And we should know that we may not see people going back to spiritual world, but there are people going, there are people who go, right? But we may not see them going. And it's Kali Yuga. So we are talking about, we are in a wrong time. This time no one wants to go there basically, but there are ages when people do want to go. Satya Yuga is there, Treta Yuga is there, Dwapar Yuga is there, right?
In fact, Prabhuji, other than people who are associated with ISKCON, I don't hear of anybody. I mean, they find it very funny when we tell them we want to go back home, back to Godhead. So they don't even want to talk about it. They don't even know about it. I have not come across many people who want to, actually go home, go back home, back to Godhead.
Yes, they don't know. The mostly they know something about is mukti. That's all they would know. Mukti. If you want to get mukti, that's the most common understanding. But what is mukti? Then there is no understanding, right? So it's like that. Okay, Paramita Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, if someone is not gifting us the deities, so in that case, can you ask anyone to gift us?
Yes, you can ask someone to gift. No problem.
Okay.
You can ask. Yes, you can ask.
But is that right?
You can always express. You can always express. Like you meet a devotee, you can express to that devotee, I wish to worship Radha Krishna, I wish to worship Karnitai. Then that devotee may mercifully give you a deity, okay, you worship.
So in that case, we can interchange. I mean, I can gift
Not
them.
interchange. Yes, you can gift them and they can gift you, something like that.
Oh.
But that's not the best way to do it. The best is you wait for Krishna to come.
You mean I should not ask for it? I mean,
The best is you pray to Krishna and wait for Krishna to come. And if you have a sincere desire, Krishna will come. In some way, Krishna will come. You can worship him, the Lord. Hare Krishna. Okay, Anju Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have a small query. Like back in our native, we have Radha Krishna worship. And so whenever I visit my native place, I try and do the seva over there. Like there is a pujari coming, but then I go and assist them and then I do the seva. So is it a wrong part on it, or I should continue doing it?
Yeah, continue, no problem.
Thank you.
Navnidhi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in Brihad Bhagavatam, we read about Gop Kumara's journey to Golok Dham. So
Yeah.
everyone's journey to Golok is in similar pattern as the Gop Kumaras, or they are different patterns of going to Golok.
Different, not similar.
We just go and appear in Golok. We don't have to take birth from any gopi's womb, or we just attain our swarup there. I'm always confused, Prabhuji, about whenever I...
It's not going to be the same for everyone. There are many ways one goes back. One is like after you die here, then you take birth in some universe where Krishna is doing his Leela. So then you participate in Krishna's earthly pastimes, get some kind of training there, and then from there go to Golok Vrindavan. You know, for some, it may be immediately go to Golok Vrindavan. And you see, you're asking this question because I don't know if you understand still Ragamarg Bhakti. So when we say we go to spiritual world, Golok Vrindavan, the form that one has as one's constitutional position, Swarupa, in Ragamarg Bhakti, that form starts becoming visible to you right here. So it's not that you come to know who you are there. You come to know who you are there right here. You know, so then you have an external identity, and then you have a realized internal identity. You realize that form, and in that form, then you are also worshipping Krishna in the eternal abode. That's called Swarupa Siddhi. You know, so that only becomes possible when the mind is very pure. Then one is able to see that form. Otherwise, if the mind is dirty, which means three modes of material nature are there controlling the mind, then one cannot enter so deep in one's meditation. Yes, unmute.
Prabhuji, when the mind becomes pure, we get to know about the Swarup during our chanting itself, slowly.
You'll come to know Swarup. How it will come to know, it's not going to be same again for everyone. You can come to know during chanting, you can come to know about in a dream. Anyway, it will start becoming visible.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
You start getting an inkling about it. Just like when the sun is rising, it's not that the sun immediately rises into the sky. When the sun starts rising, you first begin to see some yellowish and orangish color into the sky, right? Then you come to know, okay, now the sun is coming up, sun is going to rise. So it's a gradual revelation of the form of sun. Similarly, the cleansing doesn't happen, just overnight. It's suddenly you begin to, one day you completely see the spiritual form. It slowly starts becoming manifest in one's consciousness. Okay. But then again, we should know that's not easily attained. It means long time of practice. Srila Prabhupada said that only if you give your life fully to Krishna's service, and that too you spend considerable number of years, then one can in this one life actually attain that success. Because it needs focused sadhana, focused sadhana to achieve that goal, right? So day by day, if one is working to reach that goal, then yes, one day it will be possible. Okay. Nothing happens automatically. Okay, Hare Krishna. See you.